Yo, before we get started into discussing Jeffrey Lurie and all the magnificent things he had to say, and yes, I really do think that there were some strong statements that we need to really absorb because we can't take this for granted. The fact that we have such a beautiful owner in town. You also can't take for granted Green Lawn Fertilizing because they are just the best in the business. And if you are not having the most gorgeous lawn in your neighborhood, you're a joke. I mean, it's just that simple. I didn't pay attention to my lawn. I was an idiot. You want to be an idiot? No! Don't follow my footsteps while I was doing nothing about my lawn. Follow my footsteps when I do! Start talking with the experts over at Green Lawn Fertilizing. I already started my first wave of treatments. My wife and I yesterday go, holy hell! Look at how much this is already starting to pop off. Still some time here that you got to go through with multiple different treatments, but still, I mean, already we're like, wow, this is awesome. They are based in Philly and the best in the market, based in the Philly area. Experts in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, and extremely knowledgeable. They've created their own custom blend that will have your lawn recovering. So the first round is so important that they are actually offering 2 free treatments and 10% off for you to get started right now. It is so important. Spring is here. It is time to rock. Make sure you check out the link in the description, which will take you right to their website. Through my link, it'll say, hey, Brodes sent me here. You want to get started today. So do not wait any further. Get on that website right now. Get yourself over to Green Lawn Fertilizing and make sure your lawn starts getting treated, because once it starts to look beautiful, you're never going to look back and you're going to say, wow, wow, wow. That's right. Green Lawn Fertilizing. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome on into Bleacher Report. So yesterday, the buzz around the NFL world was all centered around the tush push. And obviously, we needed to really discuss where it seemed like the league was trending. Eventually, that play will not be involved. But what I didn't want to lose sight of is hearing from Jeffrey Lurie when he gave us a state of where the team is type of press conference, because you don't hear from the owner that much. And we have a damn good owner that deserves love. He deserves appreciation. He's phenomenal. And it doesn't seem like he's slowing down anytime soon when you hear about his passion for this team, when he talks about what they're doing with their eyes set on the prize for a 3rd Super Bowl. There's one mission. There's one goal. They have so much determination, him and Howie Roseman at the top, to make sure that they stay the gold standard of the NFL. And there's just nothing more you can do than smile from ear to ear when you hear something like that from the man that owns the team. So I actually have a list for you. I have 6 things on my list of what I learned when listening to Jeffrey Lurie. Let's start off with number 1. He believes that the 2024 Philadelphia Eagles could truly be the best Super Bowl champion of the NFL world in history. And it's hard to argue when you look at what they did to a Washington Commanders team in the NFC Championship game. They took their soul. That cute little story about a quarterback. And by the way, leading up to the game, that wasn't the talk. That the Birds are putting up 50 plus. Don't be fooled. Don't let it fool you. In the beginning, it was, hey, you got to watch out for the poise of this kid. Nobody's been able to figure it out yet. Oh, by the way, when the Eagles and the Commanders played previously this regular season, the first go around, he had a rib injury that was limiting him. And in the second game, the Commanders win, even though they throw out the information and the data that Jalen Hurts got knocked out with a concussion. And prior to that concussion, the Eagles were on their way to obliterate the Commanders into a billion pieces and decapitate them. But, you know, hey, let's forget about that actual substance that occurred. The talk of the land was, don't rule out Washington. They have something special about them. Comedy. And then, of course, pantsing Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes with that many people watching. 30-something, nothing, fellas. Ladies and gentlemen. The pass to Devontae Smith out of half for the defense to get the stop. My point is, Jeff, you may be right. Or do I have to call you Mr. Lurie? You may be correct. It's not as if the Pats were able to do it with a special undefeated season. Nope. Saquon Barkley. It wasn't just about the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl itself, which, as if I'm acting as if that's not a big deal. But you had an iconic moment that will forever be remembered with this championship run, and that's Saquon Barkley in the snow against the Rams, which is a very difficult substance to play on. You were able to rip through and have that ridiculous run where he's punching himself in the face. There's iconic moments when you go back and look at all of the best champions in the NFL circle. There was one in the divisional round that I don't want anyone to lose sight of, is my point. The reason why this was brought up, though, which is probably the most important, is because, yes, the Eagles lost a lot of players, Milton Williams and Josh Sweat, and they traded CJGJ. So, when asked about maybe not being as strong as last year right now as currently constructed, with still the draft to go, with still Howie's season to go, because he's always making trades and always willing to pick up the phone and always seeing what's available. Nobody was talking about Mekhi Becton the way they are now before the season. Nobody was talking about Zach Ball the way they are now before the season. So there probably already is one of those cats on this roster. But there's still more ways to go to even accumulate more. But if your team maybe did take a knock with Milton Williams leaving, with Josh Sweat leaving, with Brandon Graham retiring, okay, so maybe we did. Maybe we went from the best Super Bowl champion in NFL history to what? A damn good NFC team that's going to contend? A ridiculous roster with Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell, Saquon Barkley, and Jalen Hurts, and Lane Johnson, and Jordan Mailata, and Landon Dickerson? See what I'm saying here? Cam Jurgens, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Cooper DeJean, Reed Blankenship. The list goes on and on. Nick Sirianni, a championship coach. Howie Roseman, the best general manager in all of football. Jeff Stoutland, the best offensive line coach in football. Vic Fangio, one of the most, longest tenured guy. He is the NFL. He is the NFL as a defensive coordinator. So let's not act like if we do take a step down, that we are somehow screwed, that we are somehow toast, and we will continue to make moves to constantly improve and to make ourselves better. We got a first-round pick coming. Look at where they drafted Nolan Smith. They got a first-round draft pick coming. You don't think that's going to help this football team out in some way, shape, or form? Come on, man. So I love it. And Jeffrey Lurie is not wrong to have that view. That's the proper perspective in my eyes. That's number one. Let's get to number two. Dallas Goedert is a goner. That's what I learned. And it wasn't just the remarks of Jeffrey Lurie, who went into detail about he feels that it's not just about players. These are people. These aren't just names on the back of the jersey. These are real people. But when you want to, quote, win big, sometimes you need to have some really harsh decisions. And you got to make them. And it's tough. And we had to do it with Zach Ertz. And we had to do it with CJGJ. And, times like this, it does happen. Almost insinuating that Dallas Goedert is going to be in the same exact conversation as those guys, which to me isn't surprising. But when you also factor in that Nick Sirianni spoke earlier that morning around 7:30 a.m., and he goes, this is my favorite, Quote, right now, Dallas Goedert's here. No, right now. The moment you go right now, player X is still a Philadelphia Eagle, you're already implying that there's going to be a time when he isn't. I think the writing's on the wall, unless somehow financially they figure this out. But I don't think that's even close to ever happening. I really don't. I think they know where this is trending. I think they know what they need to do. And Lurie made it very known. I need to value putting this money and putting our assets into some of these young kids that are going to deserve a contract, because what you can't do is wait for market value. If you wait for market value with all of your studs, you get screwed. It's basic 101. You see what Dallas is doing. Yo, Jerry Jones just spit in the mouth of Micah Parsons and his agent. I don't know his agent's name. I don't need to know him. I mean, talk about a backhanded slap in the face. Talk about giving one of your premier talent 2 black eyes and his agent as well. You don't work like that. You get in trouble when you work like that. When you wait for guys to be on their final year, when you do this, when you do that, then it gets super loud and controversial like you saw in Cincinnati. It's pathetic. So for them to value Jalen Carter, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell. Stop saying, Quinyon Mitchell, by the way. Stop saying, well, that's years away. Exactly. That's what you do. You start preparing for that now. And part of the reason why this team is only getting sharper and smarter, and they make even better decisions now than they did 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago. Because let's be honest, there was a time where Howie Roseman fans were screaming to kick this guy to the curb. Get him out of town now. We need a brand new face because this guy stinks. And now all of a sudden he's the best to ever do it. But that's because they gained knowledge, they gained experience, they gained winning. You know, all of it. They didn't gain winning, but they won. And what comes with winning is just an understanding. And the way that they are looking at this now compared to the way that they were looking at the 2018 season following Super Bowl 52, it's night and day. And that's going to set this organization up in a completely different way to continue success, to be a top premier team in the NFC. And again, when I hear my owner describe the plan the way that he does, I am so proud and so excited. And there's times where I go, thank God that that's who owns this football team, because there's a world where you have garbage owners. We see it with the Sixers. We see it in ways with the Flyers being owned by Comcast Spectacor. I want a Jeffrey Lurie who just totally understands this, which brings me to my third point, which is his days are not coming to an end. And you may be wondering, what are you talking about, Brodes? I'm saying as an owner, that is, as an owner of the Philadelphia Eagles. Because if you remember, a few years back, there was a time where Julian Lurie, his son, started to get more involved. He started to learn more about the football side. He started to learn more about the business side. And my antennas went up of, what does this mean? Now, I do love the idea in theory that the one who is probably going to be handed this franchise is starting early so he can learn. It's not easy. There is so much that goes into this. Some were worried, Julian Lurie, this younger kid, he's going to screw this up. I looked at it as, isn't this a good sign? Because what if one day Jeffrey Lurie did say, hey, Julian, it's yours, but we never knew he was around because he wasn't, right? We never knew if he was around. He wouldn't be around. He wasn't paying attention. He wasn't doing his due diligence. He didn't have that passion. He didn't have that hunger. He didn't have that determination. And then he was handed the keys. That would be so disgusting and devastated. That would be the worst case scenario in the world. This is actually a good case scenario. But what it started to do, it started to make me wonder if Jeffrey Lurie was getting close to that time where he may step away, because not no young pup anymore. But what he said during this state of address was, I still have that desire. I still have that passion for this. Now, Jeffrey Lurie is, just to put it in perspective, 73 years old. So, which is kind of crazy because if you think about it, Pete Carroll is 73. Pete Carroll's on the sidelines coaching, and Jeffrey Lurie's watching as the owner of the team. It's just crazy for Pete Carroll to be doing what he's doing. Now, Julian Lurie is, I'd be lying to you if I knew much about him. He went to Harvard, graduated from Harvard in 2017 with a degree in psychology. Is he 29 years old? Don't quote me. That's just what's popping up right now. Think about that. Anyway, in 2022, he was 27. 25, 20. Okay, so yeah, it's about my age. Sheesh. Imagine just knowing at my age, hey, one day you're going to have the Philadelphia Eagles and it's all yours. Whew, you guys would love me. I promise you guys would love me. But the moral of the story is when it comes to the Julian Lurie front, it does seem as if Jeffrey Lurie is happy with where he is. He knows the team is riding a high, and now would not be the time to step away and hand things off. If anything, you maximize where you are now. You let this thing continue with Howie. You let this thing go with Nick Sirianni. You just keep trying to cash in with the great players like Saquon and Jalen Hurts, and you can see if you can wrap up, I don't know, what if you can get 2 more trophies? What if you can get 3 more trophies by the time you say goodbye to owning the squad? I mean, whew. And that's not crazy to think that that's at least in the wheelhouse with the way this has been going. All right. Number 5, Nick Sirianni's getting an extension, not groundbreaking. Howie Roseman will be here forever. No, not actually, but nothing that is really shocking to us. But I do want to point out that we are going to hear about the Nick Sirianni extension rather soon, I'd imagine. And Howie Roseman is good to go. I remember was it a few months ago or was it maybe last year or so? It might have been this year because the Jets were looking for a new general manager after firing Joe Douglas. And the fact that the New York media, the New York fans actually thought there was a chance that the Eagles would allow that man to leave the NovaCare complex to go to the New York Jets is just the most hysterical thing I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen some really horrendous sports takes. I've seen some really horrendous fans say the dumbest things ever in the history of sports takes, yet that could still be at the very top of the list. I promise you, Howie's job is secure until the end of time, which, by the way, credit to Jeffrey Lurie, because when that whole Chip Kelly thing happened, there could have been a completely different era following the Chip Kelly downfall. To look at Howie Roseman then and say, you're still my guy, let's build this together. I wonder deep down if there was ever a real chance of another name there, like a real chance. Now, Jeffrey's a smart guy. Who's to say the next one couldn't have been phenomenal? But seeing what Howie has been able to do and what buttons he pushes, just nuts. All right, here's something that is so important that you need to walk away from this show consuming and never forgetting about. The way they spend their cash is not changing. A lot of the talk this offseason was cash flow compared to cap space, compared to, maneuvering money around signing bonuses wise and this and that, and how he manipulating. Cash flow has been a big, big talk. You think about Jeffrey Lurie, some of the stakes with the Eagles and what some of the moves were there from a bigger side of things. Spending cash the way they spend is not going to change. Now, here's the follow-up to that. Are they lying? Jeffrey Lurie said that this is the only way he knows how to do it. And if you want to, again, quote, win big, this is the way to do it. There's some speculation. A few people I work with over at WIP, a couple other sports talk hosts here in town, think it's all just lip service to make the fans happy. But deep down, he knows that bill is rising, because if you look at all the money that he's thrown around in that area over the last X amount of years, it is by far more than anybody else and by a large margin. So are they getting uncomfortable with the amount of green that is flying around to all these names? And I don't think so. I really don't. I do trust the ownership group. I do trust the fact that they are trying to pay the young guys because it's what they do. It is what it's all they do. It's they restructure deals. They pay early. They did it with the left side of their line. They did it with Devontae. They did it with AJ. They gave Saquon his dough this most recent offseason. He got Jalen Hurts his deal. People made fun of that Jalen Hurts contract the second it was signed, saying it was way too early. He's not worth it. This, that, and the third. And now, I mean, his cap hit was like $13 million. And then it jumps up to about $20 million. Think about those numbers compared to what some of these other numbers are touching when players hit the market to this day. It's crazy. Why would I feel they're lying when all they've ever done was pay people early? And they're looking at their most recent draft and a lot of their recent draft picks, and they project them to be studs. So they do have to map out and plan how they are going to respectfully get them all on the books with numbers that don't overwhelm you, with numbers that allow you to make other decisions so you can build a really formidable team that can go win a Super Bowl. There's no reason for me to not have trust in this owner and this general manager when it comes to the cash flow. All they do is throw this money around. No, I don't think that getting rid of CJGJ had nothing to do with Quinyon Mitchell, Coop, Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter is going to get the fattest bag in the world when he gets paid his bread, when he gets paid his contract. It's going to be insane, insane. You have to prepare for this. You got to look ahead. I trust them. I think it's foolish to not. Now, I'm not telling you I trust everything ever that is stated from an organization, but there's a big difference between one that has already shown you for a while now that they mean business and they're super serious compared to the fraudulent ownership groups that are in town and that are all around sports. They don't give you lip service. It was actually to the point. No, I take that back. I take that back. Howie, Nick, they do give you lip service, but Jeffrey Lurie in this type of environment, I don't believe sells you BS just to give you BS, especially after winning a Super Bowl. I think you feel yourself where you actually let yourself go a bit. I question if Howie was lying to us in Indianapolis at the scouting combine, and then all of his statements were actually followed up with the action. He followed it all up. He wasn't lying a lick. I don't think Lurie's lying a lick. It was actually to the point where I said, dude, don't show your hand. Now, some of these GMs and owners are dumb, so I don't know if they're particularly listening to what Jeffrey Lurie is saying. But if they had a brain, then they would. And if they did, then they may get some answers that they're looking for. So part of me said, yo, Lurie, let's zip it a little bit on how to get these contracts, where you're getting them, and how you're able to pay all this premier talent. Let's zip it up. Zip it up. One thing he said that really carried this team was the energy of 2022 and losing to Andy Reid. And this could probably be a discussion for a different day. But when you finally use all of that energy to punch the team in the mouth that you see across from you and you hit them hard, right? I mean, you hit them where they are down and out. They're not getting up and you knock them. This is a UFC fight. They got so knocked out so bad that the guy couldn't even stand afterwards for a good 8 minutes. And you can hear that awkward mumbling going around the whole entire arena because they feel bad for this dude that can't even get up on the stool. He's knocked out, blacked out, got to go right to the hospital to get checked up on. That level of dangerous. That's what the Eagles did. Now, if they used all of that 2022 James Bradbury stuff in the field and not being able to get leverage with their pass rush that acquired 70 sacks all year long, and now they couldn't do anything because of the stupid sod father. Well, now that you got the win, where does that motivation come from? And maybe it's just natural. Maybe it's Devontae, AJ, Jalen all saying that winning the trophy maybe didn't hit the same way they thought. I don't know if Jalen said that publicly as much as Devontae and AJ Brown did. AJ did it on Instagram. Devontae Smith did it on Carmelo Anthony's pod. 7 p.m. in Brooklyn, if I remember correctly, that's what it's called. So, maybe it's just naturally their DNA as an athlete. It could be. Or there's just something else. I promise you the Eagles are going to get doubted again this year because Jalen's always going to get doubted because people don't like the way that it looks. So for some reason, they're going to say he stinks, and then that's going to be bottled up by week 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we'll see this team flourish most likely, and that's probably how it's going to go. But that's the only weird little, I'm not even going to call it negative, but the one thing that I go, now if that's what fueled them, and they used all their fuel to go out and play as strong as they did at the big dance, and now they won. What now is that extra motivator? What now is that oomph that you're looking for? What helps you now? What is it? Is it people doubting you now that the team is looking different and they don't have the same names as they did last year, so people don't think you can do it again? I don't know. I don't know. But I do know this. The owner made it very clear that Zach Ballin wasn't going anywhere. So for any of us that wondered if Howie was going to go back to the linebacker and say, we need you, well, he sure did. He sure did. And it was even discussed, too, on how Howie in season doesn't extend people, give them contracts, the psyche of giving someone else a deal while others are sitting without a deal, and how that can affect things and the emotional side. One of my biggest knocks on Howie Roseman is I don't think he's a people person. I don't think he understands that side of it. This was previously earlier in his career. Well, he's clearly adapted to some level if that's the way that he thinks nowadays. He now sees that in a way. Now, maybe that could cost you. I don't know. Listen, I'm not here to say Howie isn't playing this the right way, knowing he's Howie. All right, so it's just interesting because I always thought he was maybe a little weak in the people person department, and now that seems to be something that he's valuing tremendously with the financial side of it and how that could affect the room. And to his credit, I think the way that this team played as one without anybody kind of getting that extension and whatnot, and just, hey, we'll focus on everything in the offseason. Don't worry about it. We'll make it happen. We know the mutual relationship is where it's at. The agreement is there. We like each other. We want this to work. Let's go win a bowl. Then we'll cross the I's and dot the T's, and then they do that. Whereas Daryl Morey's a robot, and he doesn't make any sense when it comes to people. And that's a huge thing here. It's a huge thing. So with that, those are sort of my takeaways and what I learned from Jeffrey Lurie when he spoke with the media yesterday, outside of the tush push stuff, because I don't want to start spitting again. With that, thank you guys all so much. I greatly appreciate you hanging out with me. This will be my final day this week on Bleacher Report, so I'll catch you next week, all 4 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on Bleacher, talking about the Birds. Have a great rest of your week and weekend, everybody. Go Birds! Talk to you next week.